Hey guys, it's Bailey from Making It from the Midwest, and this is going to be a quick review of the NYX Butt Naked Turn the Other Cheek palette, as well as a comparison between it and the original Butt Naked palette. So if you want to see both of those things, keep on watching. So first I want to start with what the palette comes with. You get 15 eyeshadows. There is a healthy mix of matte, satin, shimmery, and even glittery shadows in here, all of which are very neutral, leaning very middle of the road, not too warm, not too cool. There are exceptions to that rule, of course, with say this gold right here and some cooler taupes up here, but for the most part it is a very, as neutral as they come. Additionally, there's a great mix of highlight colors, crease blending colors, as well as deep, smoky, either outer V colors, or if you just want to make a full-out smoky eye, lots of shades for that as well. As can happen with larger palettes like this, there can be some inconsistency across shadows. Fortunately for this, that's not really the case. There are a few exceptions, like this gold down here that can get a little powdery. One or two of the mattes have a slightly chalkier consistency, but for the most part the pigmentation is still the same. Pretty great across the board. The blendability, how smooth they apply, how well you can build them, it's very, very nice. These shadows perform pretty stinking well considering that this whole palette itself retails for $25. Additionally, I don't know if you can see here, you get a nice big mirror that takes up the entire space of this, the whole cover. That's how large the mirror is inside, which I love because it also stands upright, so you can actually use it as a proper mirror to get ready. Very practical, very nice to have. Then you get into this little section down here that folds down and you find that you have 4 blushes and 3 face powders. Really, they are just highlight powders, and in the blushes you have a nice mix of pinks, berries, a peach, and really that's it for the most part. There is also a mix of textures. They managed to do that with just 4 blushes. There's a matte, a shimmery, a satin, and then what is more of a glittery berry blush here on the end. And then you have 3 highlight powders. These two blend together for me. One is more brown toned, one is a peach toned, then one is a pretty distinct white champagne sort of highlight. These as well have really great consistencies across the board. They're not super powdery or chalky. Some of the highlight powders can get to that point if you really try and layer them on, but I am wearing the champagne on my cheeks today and I think it gives a really nice sort of ethereal glow. And despite being able to see a little bit of chunky shimmer in there, I don't think it comes across on the face at all. Not even if you get, pretty up close. I don't think you can even see that on my cheeks. It just is very light, subtle sort of highlight that these create. Likewise, the blushes I think are very comparable to the singles that you can buy in the consistency and the overall quality. Everyone raves about them because they are so affordable, and that's the kind of quality I think is in these. My overall thoughts on this are that for $25 you cannot beat the quality that you get in here, as well as the versatility. The number of shadows, the shade range, the texture range, as well as here the powders, the face powders, the blushes, everything. Everything, really the only thing you're missing is a bronzer and a lip product. But besides that, this really does provide, like I said, middle of the road, sort of universally flattering shades. To contrast that, however, is the original Butt Naked Eyes palette, which in retrospect I think is kind of interesting that they came out with more of the hardcore neutral palette second and what is more of a cooler tone palette first. So here again you have 15 shadows, and I really don't think I need to hold them up side by side, although I will, for you to see that they are very obviously cool toned and even have some colors in there, some purples, some grays, some taupes, very, very different from the Butt Naked Turn the Other Cheek palette. So like I said, 15 shadows, again, a really nice healthy mix of mattes, satins, shimmers. In terms of quality and consistency, it's absolutely here with all these shadows. I just wouldn't call it a neutral palette. It has some neutrals, but it also has distinctive pinks, purples, and taupes in it as well. Then you open the bottom here and you see you have the same assortment of blushes and face powders. The blushes are slightly different, I think. There are distinctly different colors. These are a little more muted in the original palette, whereas these have a little more punch, but in general there is still the same good mix of textures and colors between light pinks, peaches, mid-tone berries with actually some pretty noticeable gold glitter, but it's distinctly different from this and still complements the palette nicely. Then you have the face powders. Again, an obvious difference here. The original Butt Naked palette includes a bronzer, one of which I am actually wearing it on my cheeks today, and then 2 highlight powders that I think were trying to accomplish what these highlight powders did, but they don't. In my original video review that I have of this, I mentioned that these just miss the mark in terms of texture. They're very chalky. You try and layer them up to build the same kind of highlight I have today, and it just falls a little flat with the texture that they have. They come off more as powdery, less as this shimmery kind of thing you want going on your cheeks. That just doesn't happen with these. So I will have to say that between the original and the new, these face powders have upped their quality. That being said, I would have loved to see them swap out one of these because they look so similar for the bronzer, because as you can see today, I think the bronzer that comes in the original palette applies really beautifully, and think that I could have done without one of these two. Even still, is that any reason if you have the second edition of this to go out and buy the original because you don't have that bronzer? No, not at all. It's just a critique. Likewise, I don't think you should go out and buy the second iteration if you don't like the other shimmery face powders in the first one. It's just something to note. That being said, I do think that if you have the first one and you are thinking, this is just really cool, had I known that they were going to come out with something that was a little warmer but still sort of neutral, I would have gone with that, then I would recommend that you buy the Turn the Other Cheek palette, just because the shadows are drastically different, the blushes are different, the face powders are different. It really is an entirely different palette, and you can have two without having any overlap amongst the shadows. If you don't have either of these palettes, I would definitely recommend the cooler tone people, those who like to wear taupes and cooler neutrals, go for the first one, just the Butt Naked palette. And those that like warmer palettes, they find the Naked one flatters them more, go for the Turn the Other Cheek palette. Both are great. As I said, there are some minor shortcomings with both, but for $25, both pack a ton of good quality product that really just can't be beat. So I hope you found this review and comparison useful. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!